Yeah, I think it's a good time to just kind of get started while the rest start streaming in as well. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining for today's session. Brief intro about myself. I'm Brian. So I work on growth and marketing for Friktion Labs. And for those of you that are new to Friktion, Friktion is one of the fastest growing portfolio management protocol in DeFi. We have traded 2.5 billion in options volume across 17 leading crypto assets. So we actually announced this just couple hours ago. You could check out like our tweet on that. Currently, we have four vaults. So vault 1 and 2 is call and put overriding strategy, and vault 3 and 4 are our delta neutral. Vault 3 is a crab strategy, and vault 4 is a basis yield. Having vault 5 coming up really soon. That's a principal protected product. Sharing more details like in the next couple of days. So to kickstart today's session, I'd like to introduce our speakers. From the Friktion team, we have myself and Uddhav, who is the CEO of Friktion Labs, and our special guest for today's session, George from Step. Yeah, maybe to get started, George, would you like to share a bit about yourself and how you got into like crypto?
GM, yeah, cool. All right, let's get started. Congrats on the 2.5 billion as well. That's a great milestone. Everyone should go and retweet that and say how wonderful it is, which it is. Cool. Yeah. So I'm George. I'm the co-founder at Step. Step Finance started out of a hackathon last year. We were one of the early Solana projects, and we started as a portfolio manager, and we were sort of one of the few projects that covered only a couple of things that were happening on Solana at the time. There was like 2 AMMs and Serum. That was about it. But then everything started blowing up, and all of these things started popping up here and there, and our dashboard portfolio manager became quite popular because you have to have one place to keep track of all of the different 50 or so protocols that were popping up all the time, and then you got these hackathons launching like 500 different random projects, some successful, some not. So Step really sort of started as that one location where you track all of that. But we have, over the last couple of months, been delving much more into the data space. So yeah, we recently concluded an acquisition of Solana Floor. Solana Floor's NFT data analytics platform, and Step will be debuting some new data analytics stuff before the end of the year. So yeah, that's a brief overview. I guess as well, you said like how I got into crypto. Like I've been in crypto for like 11 years, so I'm like an old person in this. And yeah, I mean, done everything, seen a lot of stuff, a lot of bear markets. So yeah, I can briefly go over that, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely be diving deeper into like some of the like points that you brought up later during this conversation. Uddhav, would you like to share a bit more about yourself as well for the crowd?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, George. Excited to have you guys here and chat a little bit about what you're cooking up and what's coming new to Solana. I think not a lot of people have been keeping up with the ecosystem over the last couple of months, and there's a lot more coming out than maybe expected. Haven't been in crypto for 11 years. Have barely been alive for 11 years, it feels like. But I got into crypto in like 2017, and that was mostly just because people at uni were talking a lot about it, and they were basically trying to convince everyone to buy BTC. And then it kind of took a pause when I graduated to go into commodities trading. And then while I was working, I kind of caught the DeFi bug. And as I was doing that, a lot of friends were leaving what they were doing to start building DeFi protocols. And most of these things were just like forks of EVM projects, or forks of popular projects on other EVM chains. While I realized that the big thing missing from the DeFi space was just the ability to do risk management and create strategies. What now today we call our vaults that can perform in market cycles. So regardless of what environment you're in, you don't need shitcoin emissions in order to generate some return. So for us, the big strategy or the big idea around getting Friktion out there was, we just create a better form of risk taking, and we let people access strategies that are diversified and kind of what you would expect if you were to be able to build this as a portfolio manager or trader in any normal risk taking desk.
Cool. Yeah, I think now like that we've kind of covered like the guest background, we can maybe talk a bit more about like the step kind of like this in terms of how you guys think about like the tracker, like in terms of how would you guys think about onboarding non-crypto native users. I guess when you guys started out, there were like very little users. How was the process like, and then how do you guys kind of think about.
Yeah, sure. So non-crypto native users. So we're probably talking about people that, well, firstly, I saw something the other day where people were like, what does crypto native even mean? And then I was like, actually, this is a word that we use quite often and nobody really defines it. I guess what it means is someone who knows their way around a lot of crypto stuff. Like, is that a good definition? I guess we could say new people to crypto. So maybe they've only just heard about it. This is their first interaction with different protocols. So how do we sort of go about that, or what do we think in general? I think, firstly, what we've seen over the last 2-3 years has been a big influx of a bunch of new users which have never interacted with crypto before. I think I saw some stats a while back where there was like, I think it was 30 or 40 million new users over the last couple of years into crypto. And what does into crypto mean? It means that they've bought some crypto or they've interacted with one of these DeFi protocols in some way. And firstly, that's an exciting stat. Secondly, how did they get there, or how did they come to being counted as one of these non-crypto natives, or perhaps now they're crypto native? I guess it kind of starts with a lot of the centralized exchanges. They're, I think, a funnel for a lot of what else happens. And once you have your crypto, then you can go and do stuff with it, like using Friktion or something like that, right? So for us, we saw a lot of people that had perhaps initially with Solana, there was a big boom of people that had come over from the Ethereum ecosystem. And that was maybe the first couple of months of the boom last year. And then after that, really, it was a lot of brand new people that perhaps had only interacted with one protocol previous, or they were brand new and they didn't know like how a lot of things worked or what all the protocols did, and this was their first experience. So firstly, I think Solana has been a place for a lot of new people, and that's been super exciting to see. And again, I think a lot of them sort of come for the speed and the low costs of doing anything in Solana. If you want to lend, if you want to swap, if you want to do all of these things, people maybe forget, but that was like an $80 transaction fee for Uniswap last year, and that was for most of the year. So it just wasn't viable for new people. It's like, hey, you want to do this crypto thing? By the way, before you can literally do anything, you got to pay $80. And by the way, that only just swaps a coin. And yeah, hey, the coin needs to like 10 billion X for you to make money back on your initial $200. So yeah, I think these sort of tools, are really good. Solana filled a niche, and we sort of saw a lot of growth from that. So we captured a bit of that. That's kind of what we try and reach out to do at Step. But I do think that a lot of these protocols probably should just focus on crypto native people. I think the audience is big enough now, and we don't really have to reach out too far from the bounds of the ecosystem, because also it's got to be worth your while to do that as well. So I'll just sort of end it there. I think, focusing on crypto native people is really good. There's enough people in the ecosystem now. Projects should probably focus on that. New people will come in, but they'll probably come in via the centralized exchanges first. So let them do all of the heavy lifting of teaching people about crypto.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I definitely don't think it's 100. I mean, it's cool. It's kind of different than refreshing than what ours has changed over the last couple of months. I think the challenge of trying to onboard people into crypto for the first time is probably best suited by someone like a centralized exchange, or previously I would have said a centralized lender whose job it is to just offer some yield product to a user. I think that's going to change though a lot, and I think that is changing a lot. We're taking this on as something that we believe as Friktion is kind of important for DeFi platforms and protocols to educate new users. I mean, this is a big reason we're building Friktion Learn, which is essentially this education platform for a 0 to 1 DeFi onboarding experience. So you can learn about things for the first time rather than having to put a couple $100 into an AMM. You can first read about how AMM works, play with the simulation, and then make a decision to put capital at risk. I think centralized exchanges are definitely top of the funnel. It's going to be hard to get a different world, particularly because there's so many barriers just to get off of the traditional banking rails. And I think George has some really quality shit posts about this actually. But if you go and look at the experience to get off of CeFi and into DeFi over the last few years, it's evolved quite a bunch. I think now everyone kind of memes that the best place to on-ramp, the best bridge is a centralized exchange. And I think to some extent that's true, particularly in the light of the last 2 months or 3 months of events that we've seen, just proving how challenging it is to scale safely a trustless bridge. I mean, in order to onboard these users, I think we have to also change our UX a lot. And this is something that we've been working on a bunch, and it comes with talking to a lot of new users who have never touched crypto. Like one thing that we've seen in the last few weeks is there's users who are Celsius casualties who may have been using Celsius, Nexo, BlockFi, these type of kind of abstracted lending solutions. So totally CeFi. And now we're coming into DeFi for the first time because they realized that all Celsius was doing was putting their money into this. And they have played a huge role in TVL for the DeFi ecosystem. I think if you look at some stats, it is between 30 and 50% of TVL and DeFi came from these centralized lending books, which, I mean, obviously that is not how much lending happens in DeFi. So they're doing things beyond just lending. They're definitely yield farming and dumping shitcoins. So for us, in addition to having a really, really different UI, and we're about to launch this redesign, I see Jason just hopped on, that is going to change the way I think people look at Friktion and I think understand Friktion. And another part of this is the wallet experience. I personally think that wallets are historically have been the worst that they've ever been. So I think wallets are one of those up-only spaces in which if a user wants to touch crypto and they go through this wallet, they may get scared because they don't understand how the wallet works, or the wallet isn't very self-explanatory. But just talking to some teams who are working on wallets today with a ton of fervor and actual product backgrounds, I think what we will see come out of the wallet space, whether it's just the concept of using wallets to just replace logins, or creating an in-app experience where in every wallet you can access the best of DeFi, the best of portfolios, the best of NFTs, rather than having to move about to a bunch of different places. Those are kind of three things I think will help drive a more broad-scale crypto adoption.
Yeah, actually, that point about centralized lenders and people coming across from them, I think that's super relevant, because a lot of these people perhaps didn't know that DeFi was a thing, and then that's really where their money was. And now, literally, all of them have collapsed in some way. So the best thing that DeFi protocols and people can do is to jump up and down and shout about, hey, by the way, when all of this craziness was going on in the markets, DeFi lending protocols worked fine. Everything, worked as intended. It was all transparent. You could track literally everything on chain. Everything was there for everyone to see. It wasn't, oh, what's going to happen? Is this person dodgy? Are they good or bad? Don't know. DeFi clearly has a leg up there. So everyone should be focusing on that as a core message, I think.
Yeah, one interesting thing is when crazy events like this happen, they're largely covered by. I mean, it is one question of how the narrative is built, but then also how do we frame whether DeFi can work? Because I mean, a lot of these things we're participating in under collateralized lending, and that's something that DeFi hasn't really solved yet. I mean, there's some early attempts at it, and there's some projects that are pretty useful. But I think one big reason is you can go and track everything that happens, and there's so much fishing around, as in digging around to find Nansen whales and then tagging them to Celsius, tagging them to all these large lenders. Is this something that this kind of on a question about STEP? Is this how you see kind of the data future for STEP progressing, or maybe in a world where just to come back to this core topic of data and DeFi, how do you think we'll be able to leverage this in the future with STEP?
Yeah, totally. good question. And the way that we think about it is there's three levels of data. Firstly, you've got the blockchain information, right? And you see that on a lot of websites. You see the transaction TPS for Solana. Oh, it's 2,000. Cool. Everything's working okay. Oh, it's 100. Like, it's very slow. These are, I guess you would call them like basic stats, basic analytics. And, that's sort of what I would say level one is. Level two is more of the things like you say, like Nansen, whereby, hey, we're doing some analysis on some wallets. Here's a whale wallet that we found, and they just did a transaction for $1 million USDC. So it's more sort of observing what's happening on chain, tagging it, and then marking those, particular wallets of interest that people can monitor, or contracts of interest, and so on. So that's level two. Level three actually is something that we think that isn't really done quite yet in the crypto ecosystem, and that's more niche data insights for individual protocols. So, and this is something that we internally were thinking like 6 months ago. What is the future of Step going to look like by the end of the year? Is it that we add a whole bunch of buttons that people can press on their dashboard that do something in the DeFi world, like, I don't know, go and stake some coins or go and lend some coins? And yes, okay, like that's maybe a valuable thing. If it's a place which people go to sort of see an overview of their all of their money. But really, like in bear markets, people click less buttons and there's less people there in the first place. Number two, as a business model, it's very transactional. It's not really scalable in that way. So actually, we want to leverage our existing integrations, which is like 95% of the Solana ecosystem, and be able to utilize all the stuff that you see on your portfolio right now in Step, like, oh, what's the APY of some lender? Oh, what's the Friktion vaults at today? When do options expire? All of this kind of stuff. We already have all of that in the dashboard as an integration. So can we display that to people in, useful analytics dashboards that can show that performance over time? And that's where we're going to. So yeah, I guess sort of to get back to DeFi and data and that sort of thing, I think that's the future, and I think that's something which nobody really does yet. Nansen acquired a portfolio manager recently with 8board for 10 milli, and so they clearly see the future going that way. And yeah, look, I think more niche insights on a protocol level are going to be super interesting, and that's going to be really informative for investors, and yeah, to really sort of see how these things sort of perform over time. And I know Friktion do a lot of that cool stuff as well on the Friktion analytics page.
Dude, I mean, you guys are the fastest at getting new shit integrated or like new things live, which I think it has a lot of edge because you saw, at least I kind of viewed it as like 8board was, so for context, like I think it took 8board 2 days to get everything, all the Friktion vaults integrated from this like SDK that we gave them. And with you guys, it's a constant. Like if there's something down for 10 minutes, you're often some of the first to be like, hey, this needs to get bumped. Or it needs to fix something. And I think that type of accountability probably shows that you guys should win a decent amount of the market if this is where you're competing. But I'm curious, like, what will people be able to do once they have these insights? I think like with Nansen, it's pretty clear, but they also had this early community of just like going and labeling all these things, which made it easier to figure out who's who, and then potentially just to chase smart money. Do you think Step will have something like that, or will Step focus on, as you mentioned, like it's kind of frustrating. There's often like, data in DeFi is transactional, so you have to pay for like random queries when in reality you probably shouldn't really need to. How do you expect this to scale as a kind of business from your side?
Yeah, so I guess why do people care about data insights in general? Why do people pay money for it? And you look at any of the data insights platforms, and look at some of their plans. They start at a couple of $100 a month, and they go up to like $9,000 a quarter, or like $5,000 a month, or something like that. So people are paying a lot of money for this kind of stuff. Why? Why do they care? I think the answer to that is, well, the people that are paying on the top plans kind of want an edge, and well, it's probably true for a lot of people as well. But certainly for the higher tier plans, they want some sort of edge in the market, and they pay for these. Yeah, exactly.
No, they have edge.
Exactly, right. These are two different things. But look, if you're providing data and insights to people, they want to feel like they're paying some money and they're getting something interesting and useful in return. So what do we have to do? We have to provide insights that are, as I said, not like level 1 or level 2 kind of stuff. It's more sort of niche. It's tailored towards individual protocols. It's things which nobody else does. And it's things which might inform their investment decisions. Like, should I go into this protocol? Oh, wait, it rugged 95% of TVL in the last like 2 days. Didn't know that if I'd just gone to the website. Like, just random things like that, might be something that people would pay for. So yeah, I
That's
think we
super
have
cool.
to.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, like it could be, any of these kind of things. Like, what's been the APY of some random shitcoin in the last 4 different platforms, or how many people hold this LP as opposed to another LP, or what's the range of liquidity concentration within an Orca whirlpool, in the concentrated liquidity section. Like, that kind of stuff I think is highly useful and something that people want to pay for. So yeah, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, I think the type of insight where you kind of move beyond just like what maybe a DeFi llama has, where you can see APYs by seeing not just historical APYs, but also like risk associated with those. I think that that makes the new user experience, to go back to our first question of someone coming into crypto, a lot more friendly. Like it's the amount of transparency might be overwhelming in the beginning, but I think in the long term, people will design more abstractions to make that more digestible for new DeFi users, as well as assuming there's like a new wave of these centralized yield applications that show up and offer the products in a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And these kind of things as well, and this applies to the friction analytics, is they're talking points. They're things in the ecosystem which people can use as a reference. So for example, like if people are using your data and they're posting a picture about it and then talking about it on Twitter and being like, oh, the MSOL vault is this APY this month, or whatever it might be, they're starting that conversation. They're initiating that thing. They are, helping spread the brand message essentially, and it is a talking point. So if you can generate a lot of talking points that people can use, that's really good as well to sort of build a product and build a brand around. So, and you see that with Nansen. Like, people are always posting Nansen charts and being like, oh, hey, this is cool, or Dune or Glassnode or one of these other ones, right? They're using that as their reference, and then that spurs a whole bunch of other conversations on top of it. So yeah, that's how you know that people like and see value in the product.
Yeah, and I noticed that Step had a new Twitter account that joined recently. Could you share I guess you could share some context into what the Step Data Insight account will be? I feel like it's a perfect ball for this.
Yeah, what a great segue. Wasn't intended, by the way. Yeah, so Step Data Insights, we set that up recently, again, to sort of introduce these ideas to people, introduce the concept of using data insights to garner specific niche insights on chain. We've done so. Firstly, it's a newsletter. Anyone can go and sign up to it. Secondly, we have a Twitter account for the newsletter that we solicit ideas from the ecosystem of what people want to see, and also like talk about it as well. So there's a lot of different things that we can talk about, but I think our sort of purpose for that is to take a neutral approach across all of Solana. So we just don't want to talk about step stuff. Like, we talk about a whole bunch of different things, whether it's Lido staking or MSOL or APYs or whatever it might be. We take a neutral approach to just the entire chain and just sort of talk about different insights and what they might mean. We did a comparison a while back for like OpenSea versus Magic Eden users. And that was super interesting. Like, look at the chat right now. Almost everyone has an NFT profile picture, right? So clearly there's something going on with NFTs. What's going on? How big is it? How do these two platforms compare? What's the daily activity of each user like? Oh, by the way, the average Magic Eden user transacts 7 times more often than the average OpenSea user. Oh, that's an interesting statistic. Stuff like that, right? And yeah, we made a newsletter around it. Everyone should go follow it. It's kind of just to introduce the concept of, look, data insights are valuable. You can garner interesting information from it. Maybe you should check it out. It's all free.
Yeah. So while we're on this topic of Magic Eden versus OpenSea, I'm curious if you have any spicy takes that you're willing to share with us today. Maybe it'll come out in a quiet tweet later. But curious to get your take on how you think a Solana first NFT ecosystem should or can enter the broader multi-chain world, and if there is something that Magic Eden can do, whether it's from a data perspective, whether it's just from a product perspective, to make it stand out while in a very competitive NFT world, where I feel like everyone's just launching NFT marketplace every week.
Yeah, I don't know how spicy I can be, but all I would say is, well, a couple of things. Number one, the NFT people are different to the DeFi people. Like they literally follow different people. They don't know what is happening in the different parts of the ecosystem. I would say that I'm more familiar with the DeFi ecosystem. I don't know everything that's happening in the NFT ecosystem. I've been learning a lot recently after the Solana Floor acquisition that we did, but I still have a lot to learn. So yeah, firstly, they are different sort of audiences. Secondly, like, is there a way to bridge things? That's, I think, something which is interesting for people on both sides of the fence, because I think there's benefits there for everyone, right? Clearly, I think in the last 6-7 months, okay, there's been a massive DeFi bear market. Everything is down, but NFTs have kind of powered on, and they've been doing really well. Numbers are really well. The communities are still active and not a dead zone. Yeah, so I think just in general, like, NFTs seem to be this area of crypto which is doing really well. And on Solana, it just so happens that one of the biggest NFT marketplaces in the world is Magic Eden right now. Will that always be the case? Don't know. I know there's a lot of sort of competition coming up with marketplaces, and it was the case like last year that there was a lot of marketplaces, but they all kind of like sucked in a various way, and Magic Eden just came along and made it awesome. So yeah, I think there's opportunities there for everyone to be involved. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you make a super interesting point. With one of the first things you said was like NFT and DeFi communities and users they just look very different. And one thing I'm really excited to do is I've also had this view. I haven't really been able to quantify it because I think it's just hard to profile users in crypto. As kind of weird as that sounds, I'm not trying to be like authoritarian here, but just trying to understand like what users get engaged by. Like, if a user is let's say, do you have to hold more than 4 NFTs to be considered an NFT degen? But then if you hold less than 4 and also have maybe sold above the floor twice, is it a criteria for a DeFi project to come to you and try to like incentivize you to use their platform? So like, I think there's some cool insights that we can get from this, and maybe you have some thoughts on how we could architect something like this to bring NFT users over to DeFi, because the way with NFT users is still so much. It's more continuous, like you said, regardless of kind of spot price than new DeFi user adoption. DeFi user adoption goes up when price goes up because we're submitting all these like inflationary free coins. But for NFTs, like, the community stays. Like, you meet a friend on a Discord, you're gonna go and talk to them every week or something, or every 2 days. Do you guys think you'll have some cool ways of helping DeFi protocols get insights from other communities and potentially trying to show and help them find users from different communities?
Yeah, so I think these are two things. One is like, how can protocols in general maybe bridge that gap? And then number two is what we're doing at Step. So I think how in general to bridge the gap between DeFi and NFT knowledge. Look, I think people in NFTs, they're not going into crypto for the financial side. I mean, obviously there is an upside with NFTs and everyone likes making money and number go up. But it's different to DeFi, right? DeFi people sort of approach it as like, what's the APY? What's the percentages? Let me look at it over the next 30-day period. What's the token price at now? A lot of different like financial specific things. Whereas the NFT communities, it's kind of like, how do I grow the value of my project? It's more around like either hype or getting more people involved in the community or different giveaways or basically just generating content in general. So that's sort of one thing I think that's quite different, is the financial side versus maybe the non-financial side. So maybe for DeFi protocols that are very heavy on the financial side, maybe they need to think of new ways to sort of entice people with things that they're familiar with already. So maybe that's giveaways, maybe that's NFTs themselves, maybe that's some sort of gamification in the Discord, maybe that's I don't know, it could be many things, right? I think some people are trying to do those sorts of stuff, but yeah, I think someone has to introduce people to the financial side and provide a meaningful sort of reason to be there. Like the NFT lending stuff, I think is really cool. Being able to make fungible and non-fungible token is pretty interesting. To be able to borrow against it or to be able to short a NFT, I think is pretty cool. So yeah, maybe these things will catch on. I think that'd be super cool. I think for us, what we're doing, so this acquisition that we recently did with Solana Floor, they're the largest NFT data analytics place on Solana right now. So how do we utilize that? There's a lot of NFT communities that use it as a source. For us, going into the data world, certainly it makes sense. Secondly, your NFTs are an essential part of your portfolio, so they should absolutely be tracked and managed, and there should be useful insights on step all about your NFTs. But also, I think on the content generation side, on the community interaction side, there's other stuff that we can do there. So maybe more on the media side, maybe there's different opportunities that the projects can use to talk about. It might be guides. It might be how to use introduction videos for individual NFT projects. It might be a lot of that kind of stuff that we're thinking might be something that we can sort of offer as a value add on the Solana Floor side, not including just the data. But yeah, for us right now, it's focused on the data. That's going to be the bridge. But I do think there's like additional, what you could say, upsells or additional, things which you can offer to communities that they would see valuable and that they already try and achieve, right? So yeah, that's sort of some thoughts there.
That's awesome. I think one interesting point you mentioned about the content, I've always somewhat distinguished NFT communities and DeFi communities as like one is more of a media company and one is more of a fintech company. And with the media stuff, I've realized like if you look at Samo, for example, they've taken a massive a view or a massive kind of strategy where they work on producing content about literally everything, and they've kind of turned into this awesome project that just represents everything that Solana is and everything that Solana has to offer. And as a result of that, like they have one of the strongest communities of people. And what started as like Solana's biggest meme coin, and now has like I think 100,000 people who are just talking about stuff and building random stuff together, getting more ecosystem knowledge spread around, which probably works really well for someone like us. I mean, we learned a bunch from them as we were trying to understand how to build out our NFT collection, which is the Lightning OGs, which really is, I mean, the concept of utility in NFTs is kind of like yield in DeFi. It's like, it's the meme that's associated with your subsector. But for us, trying to figure out how to make an NFT that really sits core to Friktion, as well as like bringing new users in through an experience that may not be super financial heavy or require a lot of like hard right brain thinking is really hard. It's challenging. I mean, I'm excited to try to use data like you guys mentioned here to try to find some of these users in the early stage and really like kind of incubate these communities using whatever insights that we can find and potentially just work with NFT projects, because I think the gap is going to close a lot, especially like we've seen with people like StepN moving from truly just emissions and GameFi to now proper Web2 company where they're onboarding brands, they're onboarding the users of those brands. And I mean, if you know the Nike TAM, it's probably larger than most StepN users had in the beginning. So it seems like the opportunity to integrate the two communities is going to be pretty exciting. It's going to take a lot of iteration though. I think trying to find the optimal overlap of NFT and DeFi users is just really hard.
Yeah, and I think what you said there about wallets is also super important. So basically like partnerships with external providers that can either source liquidity, users, deal flow, that sort of thing to individual DeFi protocols. Like I think that's going to be super important. So it might be wallets, and maybe there's a button in the wallet app to like stake your coins at Friktion to get a yield. And users like don't need to go to Friktion and understand what a covered call option is and all of the different specifics. They just see a thing in an app and maybe like a risk score or something, and just press a button. So and maybe that's just the way to do it, because I think if DeFi protocols stray too far from their like initial ethos, that can also be bad. If you try and change a product too much to attract a particular crowd, then you kind of are left with nothing really. So absolutely like on the bandwagon of improving user experience and education, that sort of thing. But maybe sometimes the best way to grow is through like different partnerships with other useful parts of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, on the wallet side, you mentioned something that's kind of huge for us. We recently announced that we're working with this wallet called Ultimate, previously known as Unstoppable, which we think is bringing probably the best, if not one of the best, um, kind of user experiences into DeFi through the wallet. So really, it's a wallet that enables DeFi in a more seamless way than we've really seen before. So definitely check out. Those are some really interesting. It's a really interesting team. I think they think about UX as obsessively as we do when it comes to making sure the user has what they need to know and also can access the most important things in one place. So pretty exciting to see wallets kind of approach this full stack mentality as well, to have DeFi within their offering and then make it very seamless for the user to make that decision. I think that's going to go a long way for mass DeFi adoption, because I am kind of scared that people will just never understand some of the complexities of DeFi. So
Totally, 100%.
another thing I wanted to slide kind of pivot over to a little bit was when you mentioned earlier, the way I've always known Step is the front page of Solana, and I wanted to get your thoughts on when you came into the ecosystem a year ago. What did Solana look like? And today, when you look at the ecosystem and you see kind of the meme Solana 2.0s, Aptos, Mistins of the world, what do you think are I'm not saying those are actual memes. I mean, they could be very, very well productive in the next few years. But what do you think has changed the most about the Solana ecosystem? And particularly, what maybe some things that you can highlight for the better or worse that you'd like to see going forward?
Yeah, I think we can all sort of sit back and say that the growth of Solana last year was spectacular. Not only people look at the price, I mean, that's a small part of it, but actually the number of projects, the developer engagement, the docs, a lot of the different stuff on Solana, just all across the ecosystem has grown. So what it looked like back then was it wasn't something that had critical mass. It didn't have all of the different verticals that you expect in a healthy ecosystem. And what do I mean by that? It's like, well, any DeFi ecosystem needs multiple AMMs, liquidity pools. It needs stable swaps. It needs ideally like on-chain dexes as well, maybe perpetual futures markets, lenders for sure, 100%. NFTs should be a vibrant and growing place. It needs the infrastructure to support all of these different things. So liquid staking, node providers, all this sorts of stuff. This wasn't developed in Solana, a year ago, and now it is, right? And now it's kind of like a snowball that you can push down a hill, and it gains its own momentum over time, because these kind of things feed on each other and they become more than the sum of their parts. Obviously, it gets diminished during a bear market, but in general, things go to absolute zero if you have none of this. So really, the ecosystem needs to be healthy. You need to have a lot of the different verticals covered, and Solana does that. I can't think of a vertical which Solana doesn't cover, and in fact, I think it covers it better than Ethereum in most places. Ethereum has a lot more TVL, but Ethereum also has a lot of siloed L2s with their perp dexes or like actual order book dexes there, and they're not composable with the rest of the Ethereum ecosystem. Whereas, like, if you want to address, a Mango product, like, it's all available on the same layer on the L1. So, that's why I think Solana sort of has an edge. Now, what does this mean for the new L1s that sort of come along? Look, I think it's going to be a very hard uphill battle for them to gain this critical mass. Maybe they do it. Maybe they do that. But the same playbook that worked 2 years ago of let's make an AMM, let's sprinkle some emissions over everyone so everyone puts all their money there. Let's, build a lending platform that's literally the same as every other lending platform you've ever seen. These things I don't think will work as well. So it needs to be something different, something more. And while they're trying to do that, all of these other platforms which already have this critical mass, like Solana or the Ethereum ecosystem, they're going to continue to hit home runs. So it's going to be an uphill battle for them. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Hey, I wish them all the best. And, people that are trying to do stuff over there, that's great. I think a multi-chain future is absolutely the way to go. And yeah, like I use a lot of stuff on different chains, but I mean, really, I think, Solana's doing really well at the moment, and it just has a lot of momentum, which is going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, this concept of Solana being beyond feature parity of Ethereum is something that gets me really excited. I mean, I don't think I think that happened like months ago. I don't think that's something new. Like just as you were mentioning with the example of Mango, like DYDX still doesn't have cross collateral, right? It's just USDC, and maybe that changes. Obviously, I mean, I hope that changes with the app chain, but I mean, like you can't access all of the same vaults in under one roof, in one optimized place like you would on Friktion across 4 protocols and on Ethereum L1. So just bringing together all these kind of more complicated things, and I think in part that's, at least in my view, is because like when Solana started, it really kind of came as like a trader's chain or a someone who has been in markets before and kind of has a view on what are the most efficient instruments you need in order to bring an ecosystem of retail and institutional. And I think right now still one undervalued point of Solana, because this is coming very soon, is the integration of custody and KYC. We haven't really talked about this much, and I think this is where like true Web2 data analytics will provide a lot of insight. Is like if we can start to see which institutions are coming in to touch Solana, and have been, I mean, they've been really scared for the last 2 months, and rightfully so. I think with the combination of outages and just bridging. I think for us, something we've been struggling with is thinking through how to onboard them in a process that's like slow and almost just like it's a long, drawn out transition from, okay, well, you're currently used to interacting with MetaMask. Well, now we tell them like, hey, there is no MetaMask on Solana. Sorry to break your heart, but come over here and try to use Phantom or now Wallet Connect V2, and slowly start to get into the ecosystem. And I think we've never seen someone who's gotten into the Solana ecosystem say that they're going to leave, because to them it's just a superior place to access all these primitives that exist. And I think a huge part of that has been like, oh, we got Mango, we got Stable Swap, we got all these exciting things that have come out, and now we're going to get a lot more mature that I don't think we're able to really replicate on other chains without having some big trade-off. So super exciting.
Yeah, 100%. I think certainly for a lot of protocols where TVL is the main metric, like it's the what is the way that's going to interest a lot of these institutional whales or whales in general of coming over to the Solana ecosystem. And like you say, I think once people are there and they see how everything fits together, you don't really have an incentive to leave. Like all of the coins which I would want to have as part of my portfolio, all of the different things that the primitives that I might want to incorporate, I can do all of that in one place, and I don't need to. Oh, do I have to bridge to Optimism? Oh, by the way, I can't extract my funds for 7 days because of, that's how optimistic rollups work. Like, oh, this is dumb. I have to use some, other bridge which takes custodial risk on. Like, these kind of things, right? It's like once you see it all clicking together, I think it just becomes obvious. Or it's like, yeah, of course, I would do stuff here. I can still use, okay, Phantom's a different wallet, but I can still connect it to my ledger and like store assets there. So I can still as an institutional like have that sort of level of risk management. So yeah, in fact, hardware wallets are one thing I'd like to see a lot of improvement on. I had a shit post about that, like, I don't know, last week or something. Yeah, definitely need more of them in Solana.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see. I mean, ledgers and treasures definitely don't get enough attention until shit hits the fan. But I think it'll be cool. One thing that made me think about was like with Optimism, for example, Solana took off without any insane incentive system. Even I don't think there was any incentive system from Solana Foundation or Solana Labs to give SOL to protocols, or to give SOL to protocols to give their users as like a true L1 customer acquisition tool, and which is insane, because every L2 right now, in order to take off on Ethereum, and I'm saying the risk of being a maxi, which I like multiple chains and I've degen on many chains before. I think it's impressive that Solana didn't have to, or hasn't had to, use an insane amount of native token emissions to get new users on board. And it's pretty cool that things like Serum just stood out from day zero to like, oh, this is very efficient. This is how we can create a marketplace. And then everyone who knew how valuable marketplaces were just showed up here and started to use Serum.
Yeah, and that's what initially attracted us to Solana as well, because actually our first submission to the hackathon originally it wasn't how Step is at the moment. It wasn't a portfolio dashboard. It was actually a DCA contract. And my co-founder Aaron had built out some prototypes for a DCA contract on like Ethereum and at the time Polygon, although it was called Matic, and it sucked. Like A, there was no coins to buy. B, it was you needed a TVL of something like 5 million on day one to break even on one transaction, and just because of fees. And yeah, by the way, day two, yeah, you're all even more behind the behind schedule. So like to actually make it work in those ecosystems couldn't be done. But then you had all these coins that were like bridged across to Serum and were trading there, and they had liquidity, and it cost like nothing. That was a real sort of attractive thing right then. So yeah, I think it's a good point that you make, like optimism emissions and people trying to kickstart emissions. I remember when like Phantom had a lot of emissions, and hey, it got so much TVL and billions of TVL, and wow, isn't this a great success? And then it disappeared. Like as soon as the emissions went off, yeah, Andre left, and then everything like went to shit, right? But like essentially the whole game plan was, can I go there? Can I get some sweet emissions for a while? And then, yeah, I'm probably going to leave after that. But yeah, Solana didn't have any of that, with Sol to begin with. So yeah, that's super cool.
Dude, it's always a lot of fun jamming with you and kind of getting some big brain thoughts from a seasoned veteran. This has been it's been a fun conversation. I'm super excited. I haven't really thought as much as I did today, probably about how we can use data from the NFT world to grow the DeFi ecosystem. Because as you mentioned, there's a risk of kind of getting out of our element, to lack of a better word, and kind of focusing on DeFi as the main skill set. And last question I wanted to throw out there while we solicit some questions from the audience. So if you do have anything, just kindly request to speak. Was something either on the nature of what Step is working on for the next few months, or what do you think the most meaningful difference in terms of the UI UX of Step in 6 months will be versus what it is today?
Yeah, cool questions. And just quickly as we finish off the NFT topic, so you can quantify this, the difference between the NFT people and the DeFi people. I posted a while back, there was a thing where you like connect your Twitter and then it shows you the people that follow you and the people that they follow. And it creates like a web map of people that are more closely connected and interconnected to each other, are more closely defined as dots on a 2D surface. And yeah, basically it's like two individual clouds. It's like the people that follow NFTs, definitely have their own ecosystem, and the people who follow DeFi like have their own ecosystem as well, and they do not meet. There is no overlap there. So I thought I will try and find it, and I will post it after the call. But yeah, it's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah. Sorry, and the question I forgot in all of that excitement.
Oh, just curious how you think the UI UX of Step will be different in 6 months than it is today.
Oh, yes, totally. So, look, the first thing is that Step will have multiple products. We're no longer just a dashboard, and we've been a lot more than a dashboard for quite a while. It's like you could auto compound your yield farms on Step. You could settle orders from Serum order book decks on Step, and see NFTs and a couple of other things. So, look, there's Step is sort of expanding beyond just being this dashboard and place that you see updates to your wallet, and that's how we want to stratify it, is that here's a product for things which are your wallet, and cool, there's a dashboard, there's all of this kind of stuff. This is a real-time look at your wallet right now. And here's product number 2, which is a look at things which are not your wallet, and this could be like the data insights, the niche kind of protocol level things which are telling you interesting stuff about the Solana ecosystem, and that's probably going to be a subscription plan. There's probably going to be different tiers of that. We have a lot of people interested in transaction history as well. So people that just want the raw data, and there's different like consumers of that transaction history, even Web2 companies and stuff. It's like, hey, I want to give you an address, and then you just tell me everything about that address. Like that in and of itself is a useful thing. So yeah, how Step will look in 6 months will be that there will be separate products. They will do different things, but the whole idea of being the front page of Solana still remains. Is we want Step to be like a place that you have a good overview of all the different cool things which are happening, and then hey, we can push people to like go and look at the cool things that are happening on Friktion and be like, hey, like here's opportunity that you can look at for your idle coins or stuff like that, right? So yeah, that's sort of the goal for us, is to really sort of grow out this analytics product. And the first step with that was the NFT acquisition. So it kind of already exists right now in Solana Floor in some form, but a lot of that will be coming two-step in a sort of nice new slick step UI and everything like that. So yeah, stay posted.
LFG, man. LFG. I'm ready to see it. I think Solana has through Solana protocols, like one thing that always stood out to me is like how freaking good the UIs are. I think like people put a lot of time and thought into building good UIs into Solana. And I mean, if you take like Mango versus DYDX, it didn't take long for I think Mango's experience to be smoother and more interesting to understand. If you take Friktion versus like the suite of products for yield on Ethereum, I think it's easier to touch. It's less intimidating, more informative, more transparent. So I'm really bullish to Solana UI UX continuing to be best in class.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the UX is better on Solana, and people often meme about UX in crypto in general. Oh, it's too hard. It's like, well, for starters, a lot of these systems are hard things in general. Like a covered call option contract is fundamentally like quite a difficult thing to get your head around. But I think the work which you guys have done is like, making that something easy for people to look at is really good. So yeah, like I think there's a lot of good examples of that in the Solana ecosystem. And as you say, I think the comparable things elsewhere probably don't have the same level of intensity. Like I guess for us, from the dashboard side, like there's dashboards on Ethereum like Zappa, and I mean for quite a whiles now, maybe like 6 to 8 months, we've had way more going on than what's on your Zappa dashboard. I don't know what their sort of roadmap's looking like or like how they see things going, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of examples like that in the Solana ecosystem of protocols that have just like, oh, here's sort of how things started over here. Let's put the foot on the accelerator on Solana and then just like, yeah, smash past it. And yeah, it's awesome to see.
Dude, this always gets me more hyped to go back to work. So on that note, I think if we don't have any questions, maybe Brian, you want to wrap us up here?
Yep. Let me just does anybody have any questions? Just one last question. If not, I should be able to just kind of close today's session. Yeah. Okay then. Yeah, thanks guys for like the panel today. Appreciate like Josh taking the time to join us for these spaces. I personally learned a lot from like the conversation today, from like the data insight side, the UI UX, the synergies between NFT and DeFi. Personally quite excited for like the roadmap, and seeing like the changes for step in the next couple of months. Yeah, so I think that kind of concludes today's session. Thanks everybody for coming down for today's spaces. Let us know if there's any other topics you guys would be interested to hear about. Yeah, so thanks George, thanks Uddhav.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. See you guys.
Bye guys. Thanks for coming on. See you in Discord.